For many years, we've been showered with a plethora of advice on the technical skills needed by leaders. Now, as someone who believes in conscious leadership, I felt that was wrong and that emotional aspects were more important. Sadly, many didn't. And then came the pandemic. Welcome to this BVTV Aspire Trilogy, coming to you from the UK Studios of BizVision. I'm your host, Malcolm Gallagher. The pandemic ushered in what many thought is new thinking, consciousness. Now, as you'll learn from my guest, it's a way to build a solid future for your business. My guest is the founder of executive coaching firm Boomerang Coach and is the author of Aspire, 7 Essential Emotions for Leading Positive Change, no matter where you are. I love the book. It's great. Let's go to Atlanta, Georgia and say welcome, Reiner Lomb. Hello, Reiner.
Thank you, Malcolm. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, I was so looking forward to seeing it because your book epitomizes everything I've been banging on for the last few years about and getting nowhere. And you just suddenly come charging through the middle of the field here with a great book. Reiner, you have a specialism in leadership, innovation, and transformational change. So let's start your trilogy by focusing on change, something so many leaders have had to do. What's the state of transformational change in the business world today? Where are the key needs and how are they being achieved, if at all?
Wow, Malcolm, that's a big question. I maybe for the time we have, I focus on a couple of things, a couple of observations in my work and in the larger world as well that I'm part of and you are part of as well. So there's when it comes to transformational change, there's two things that come immediately to mind that really matter, that affect how business leaders might want to think about why they want to transform their business and why they want to think even about it. One has to do with the rate of change that we are at this stage in history. In all of history, we are experiencing exponential rate of change. Everybody experiences it. Yeah. If you're in business or not in business, really doesn't matter. If you're retired or whatever, it's all around us. The technology and the way of life and so on. And it's driven by innovation on one side. And the change is really, we're experiencing it exponentially. And on the other side, it's also affected by these big disruptions that we like a pandemic or the war in the Ukraine or other things that happen all the time, sudden disruptions. But so there's these two factors that drive the change that we're experiencing, and it's very painful. Now, for business leader, the challenge is actually that we as human beings, and business leaders are being human beings and need to deal with that change, can adapt only more in a linear way. That's just the human condition. So we have an exponential rate of change, and we have our ability to adapt more in a linear way. And that leads to think about leading in a different way, leading in a more transformational way. Okay, that's one aspect. The other thing that I observe is really, so we all hear about finding and retaining talent, especially the young generation, like Gen Y, Gen Z, and so on. They're very idealistic. They worry about the state of the world and where the world is going in the future. We're talking about climate change. We talk about social and economic divide, racial divide, and so on, and many more issues. And they care about those things, and they want to work for companies that make a positive contribution overcoming those issues. Yeah. So they're very idealistic. But there's also the investors, more and more investors asking for the same thing. They're asking that the businesses are being part of the solution, not the problem. Okay, so that drives the need for transformational change for business leader, but also governments. The voter is pushing governments to think about it also to make sure both the incentive side as well as the regulation side is pushing businesses in the right direction so that their children and grandchildren can have a future. So we have these two factors, the rate of change that's happening on one side, that's exponential, and our ability to adapt more linear. And then on the other side, these factors that come from all these stakeholders that want the businesses to be the solution, part of the solution for creating a more sustainable, just, and society where people have a chance to live well and well-being.
See, This is why I like Aspire so very much, because what you're doing is you're laying a very clear blueprint as to the change that a leader needs to make if he's to be able to, or she's to be able to be in sync with their team, their people and investors of today and tomorrow. You know, you're talking about empathy, you're talking about consciousness, you're talking about emotional intelligence and everything like that. And that, to many leaders, though, has been alien, hasn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And there's actually a lot of research on that for the example of empathy and compassion, the higher somebody climbs in the hierarchy of a company, the less empathy and less compassion are available to the people. And we can talk, that's a whole different topic, why that is and so on. We can have all kind of theory, but that's just a matter of fact. And I would add that applies also to political leaders in communities.
Yeah.
I work with leaders not only in business, I work also with leaders in society that want to transform society or that have challenges like indigenous communities or regular, cities and so on.
Yeah, I quite agree, and I applaud that work. You know, we're doing it in our own little way with what we call our business scorecard. And sometimes, though, leaders are doing it, but they don't realize they're doing it. I was scoring one business this morning and about things like social value, social responsibility, and he was taking on 2 apprenticeships who were part of a weapons down work onwards, change your life type thing. And he was really passionate about what they're doing, but he didn't realize that that's what he was actually achieving. He was achieving the change within his business. So do you find this accidental change happening?
Well, there's change happening, but it's not happening equally in all companies and organizations. So you talked about conscious leadership and leading from another level of consciousness. There's the more conscious leaders, and there's the ones that are catching up or still need to catch up. So it's like any kind of change goes through this change curve, right? It's the bell-shaped curve. It's like, you have the people that are enthusiastic, that are more the innovators, the early adopters of change. So you have that for this type of change as well, to more conscious leadership. And then you have the others that follow and need to be mobilized. And then you have the ones that are really resisting it. And we're experiencing that in our society here in the United States and in the UK and in other parts of the world, where we have the people that are more conscious leaders. They want to lead the world to a positive change for better future, and others that want to go more backward, right? So you have this, that's another challenge, right? How do you overcome the division? That's a big theme of my book as well.
Yeah, I do believe, Reiner, in my own personal belief that those who don't make the change to conscious their businesses will not be around in a few years' time, because nobody will work for them and nobody will buy for them, and nobody will certainly fund them. Thanks, Reiner. Now let's give viewers and listeners details of your URL, your website address, which obviously viewers you can see on the screen behind me, but let me spell it out for listeners. It's all the W's dot Reiner, and that's spelled Reiner, Reiner Lomb, Lomb, reinerlomb.com. It rhymes, doesn't it? Reiner's book is called Aspire, 7 Essential Emotions for Leading Positive Change, no matter where you are. Now, for more details and or to order it, go to reinerlomb.com/books. In episode 2, I want to ask Reiner about his Aspire leadership model. So can we do that, Reiner?
Yes, absolutely. Let's get into it.